Okay, thanks everyone for a couple of minutes of your time today. I'm Ken Moy with MasterCard. So what the heck does MasterCard care about mobile phones and digital and things like that? MasterCard's roughly a 50-year company, and we've been in the payments business, card-based, for all this time. We see digital as dead serious for our business. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about why that's the case, how we see the world, and surprisingly, or maybe not so surprisingly, it's a lot of the common themes that you heard from manufacturers, the marketings, and things like that, because this mobile economy, this mobile digitization of consumers really is about leverage now, about where the power is swinging, who has it, how we have to address it, and how we take advantage of it to drive our businesses. So let me get on with it, and hopefully we'll have some time later for some questions as a group. So from a MasterCard perspective, we see the digital world and the physical world coming together as we speak. Look at everybody in this room with, I see this fellow here with 3 mobile devices here. I see Chuck has at least a couple here and some hidden in his socks over there. And I see everybody else having, doing their thing, multitasking as well. How many people are actually buying something right now on Amazon or Google or whatever you're going to do? And that's what this is all about. For us, from a MasterCard perspective, with these digital devices, uber powerful, always on, 24/7, always at the consumer's hand or hip or what have you. Every moment that a consumer looks at that device is a chance to have a dialogue with that consumer if you're a manufacturer, if you're a merchant, if you're MasterCard. And every moment is a chance for commerce to happen. So from MasterCard's perspective, it's not about buying things online or in a face-to-face environment. It's everything in between. Because with those mobile devices available to consumers today, every moment is a commerce device, a commerce experience possibility with that consumer. Okay, so there's a big prize out there, right? So everybody here in this room have seen these huge numbers about what mobile really means for industry. And these are numbers from a Gartner that was published last year. Gartner published some renewed numbers this year, but the numbers are still pretty huge. For 2013, mobile commerce or mobile payments is estimated to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $235 billion. And that was a takedown from figures that Gartner put out last year. In my view, $235 billion is still a big number. And so there's a lot to kind of gain, if you will, if the industry, the ecosystem can figure out how to tap into this and collect and kind of meet these consumer needs in such a way that really makes these numbers come to life and make them real. If you look at these numbers in terms of the analysis itself, there's roughly 445 million users of mobile devices today to make some level of payment around the world. Now, we know that mobile is different in the United States than what it could be in developing markets, in Japan, and so on and so forth. In today's terms, most of mobile payments are really made for things like P2P payments and cross-border payments, wire transfer or personal transfer type payments today. Roughly only about 10–15% of those transactions are done with retail around the world. And so there's a huge upside here in terms of if we could figure out how to connect the dots between what consumers want, the ecosystem that needs to be in place to communicate with those consumers at the right moment, and from a MasterCard perspective, making sure that when they want to pay, that payment is easy and as seamless as possible, frictionless free. And that's really kind of where we are in terms of where MasterCard wants to be. Just as it's easy for you to take your plastic and go to any retail today to kind of swipe it or tap it or put in your chip and pin, we want to be able to have that same experience, that same known experience that consumers come to expect so that they know the MasterCard transaction actually really took place in these different emerging commerce channels. We talked about digital devices or mobile phones in terms of everybody having them, and so I won't restate kind of the statistics. Everybody has a little bit of a different number, but everybody has one, right? In the United States, if you believe these numbers, 87% of us has some level of mobile devices. About half of us have smartphone devices that are connected to the internet in a real-time basis. But the part that I really want to highlight to you to kind of illustrate the power and why we should all care about mobile devices is really kind of the panel on the right. In this survey anyway, 42% of smartphone users that was part of this survey talked about using smart devices to showroom or compare shop during the shopping experience in a face-to-face type of environment. Now here's the interesting part. While they're showrooming, around 64% of these guys actually changed what they bought based on information that they received at the point of interaction. Another 70% changed the item that they bought or had an experience where they've changed had an occurrence where they changed what they wanted to buy. And then another 27% said that they were, interested in receiving discounts, and those things were really influencing how they bought and what they bought at the point of interaction. This power, these devices are super meaningful for us here, because if you're able to hit them in the right time, at the right moment, give them the right information that they need, give them the right offer, that customer is going to leave that store and go somewhere else, or that customer is going to buy something else. So that's superpower in terms of what this means in terms of retailing moving forward. Now, the other panel before me talked a little bit about customer. What mobile phones makes us have to do is be more specific about who the customer is that we're talking to. So that customer is no longer a generic thing that we're aiming for. We got to understand the moms, the young professionals, the kid who just got out of college, the grandma and the grandfather who has other needs and things of that nature. Unfortunately for us as an industry, that empowerment, that individualization, if you will, of the consumer with the leverage shifting to consumers forces us to have to multiply exponentially how we talk to these guys, because it's no longer good enough to have a broad-based message to the world at hand and the hope that you get kind of good insights, if you will. You got to talk to these consumers individually, because unfortunately, smartphones, digital devices, social media have shifted the leverage, if you will, or the power to the consumer. They get to choose who they talk to. They get to choose what they want to look at in terms of brands. They get to choose what they want to buy. And hopefully, from a MasterCard perspective, hopefully they choose MasterCard as a way of making payments along the way, right? The good news is, and I'm encouraged to kind of be here with you today, is retailers are taking notice, and for that matter, manufacturers are taking notice as well. This is some statistics about some of the top 500 retailers and whether or not they're really focusing on mobile applications, mobile solutions to help them to connect with their customers more. And it's a good, healthy number in terms of close to 40% of merchants today talking to consumers, trying to leverage this technology. I suspect that while this thing was done about a year ago, that number is probably around the 60% range. Chuck, you probably know this number more than I do, but my guess is that it's in around the 60% range now, using mobile devices, some form of mobile devices to talk to their customers and build that brand relationship, if you will, that they want to have with them. If you look at the bar chart on the right, this is about exabytes in terms of how much data flow is flowing through mobile devices at any given month. And you can see over time, more and more data is being consumed through mobile devices, through smartphones, PCs, and now tablets. And it's roughly almost 75% in terms of now data flowing through these mobile devices today. I suspect that number is going to be a healthy 80–90% moving forward. And it's going to be, as many of us already experience, an everyday part of our lives today. So what's the problem? And the problem is, we talked about earlier today, it's really early days in terms of what mobile commerce really means for financial institutions, for merchants, for manufacturers, and certainly for consumers. Consumers, still have a great deal of uncertainty about what mobile commerce really means for them and how to use this technology to help them make their lives easier. I recently did kind of a search. I went to the iTunes store, I'm sorry, the Apple App Store, and I basically searched on wallet. And if you do that, you pop up roughly 800 different wallets that's available to you. So you can imagine and certainly understand why consumers are confused about what a wallet is or what mobile wallets mean for them. MasterCard, we did some analysis of about 85,000 social conversations using Twitter and so on and so forth to try to get at the heart of the matter a little bit more closely with consumers. So we found a couple of things here. We found that consumers like the idea of commerce on phones. So they like the idea of finding things, buying things, and making payments with their phones. The challenge that they have is, I got too many choices, so I don't know if it really is legitimate or does it really work. What does it mean by does it really work? How do I get things like customer care? Like what happens when something goes wrong? I don't know exactly where that support system is. Consumers have concerns about the safety and security, so that's kind of understandable in terms of this day of data breaches and things of that nature. But they're also questioning and confused about acceptance. In other words, that's a cool app that I got from the App Store, but I don't know where I can use it. How many of you have iPads that have a whole bunch of tiles in there that you used the one time because you thought it was cool, but you never used it again? So I know I have a good, bushel, if you will, of those apps for sure. And so we're really in early days. So we as an industry have a lot of education to do with consumers. And the challenge is it's not simply just MasterCard educating. It's not simply you guys or the merchants or what have you. Somehow we as an industry have to come together to have a common story, a common set of principles that are expected by consumers so that we can break a little bit of the mystery behind what mobile is, what a mobile wallet is, and how it can be used to correspond and make payments and buy things. So this is, for us, one of the key challenges that we have to solve for, not only here in the United States, but around the world. And again, I want to add that the story and the message for what we have in the United States and the customer segments here is going to be different than what I say to people in the UK and Australia and Africa and so on and so forth, because mobile means something different for them on an individual basis, right? Okay, let's keep on going here a little bit. If you took a look at 2012 and certainly the first half of 2013, from a digital wallets perspective, we've seen the perpetuation of a flurry of a number of different activities in the industry about mobile payments. And I chose my words carefully here. I didn't say wallets with consumers. I said wallets in industry. And there's a subtle difference here because I know my wife, who I love really dearly, does not know what Google Wallet is. I know it. Chuck knows it. You guys probably know it because we're in industry and we're looking at this as an asset, a tool, a possibility, if you will, to reach consumers. But many of these different applications, if you will, have not reached and have become a consumer need, if you will, or a consumer way of doing business, a consumer way of buying things as of yet. And so we have a long way to go to kind of get there. The most coveted consumer application, I guess we all kind of know about, is Starbucks. If you look at the numbers today, there's roughly 7 to 8 million Starbucks users today. How many of you Starbucks users? That's awesome. So you're part of this 8 million, 9 million people who are using these applications on a fairly fairly frequent basis. So what's the problem? The problem is there's about 300 million people in the United States. So if you look at that from a relative perspective, that your 8 million, 9 million is really a spit in a bucket in terms of what mobile applications, mobile wallets really mean to the consumer at large. Now, what's interesting about smart devices today is it doesn't have to be the one Uber answer that solves world hunger. If you look at the Apple Passport, it's a pretty slick interface in terms of how it's supposed to look and feel. There's a bunch of APIs that people can build too. And by the way, it can also support a number of different ways of making payments, a number of different ways of rendering coupons, a number of different ways of conversion or closing those coupons for redemptions. And so you don't have to have the one silver bullet that's got to cover all the bases, if you will. It's about the phone allows us to have the flexibility to have a common user experience, but have different ecosystems behind the scene to deliver commerce in a way that makes the most sense for that consumer in an individual way. I want to point out MCX for a second. So this is the coveted, the 40 plus major retailers in the US coming together and trying to come up with a mobile wallet solution for themselves. We had a conversation before about, well, Shopkick and giving away the family jewels, if you will, to a small startup company when really the retailers really want to keep that data and learn to take that data and make sense of it for their own. So MCX remains kind of an interesting and important development in our marketplace in the United States because it really is important in a number of different levels here. One is it's about big data. Right? So this is about how can I take the information and use that information to have a one-on-one relationship with my consumer. The second level, it's about digital wallets, but it's not simply only about payments. It's about a digital wallet as an extension of the retail experience that those merchants want to have with their consumers. So the Gap wallet is going to look different than the Walmart wallet, going to look different than, I don't know, the Phillips 66 wallet and so on and so forth. It's about individual connections with their consumers. And finally, it's about payments. So this is not a silver bullet in terms of easy stuff, in terms of aligning these different needs, if you will. Each of them in it of itself is a huge issue in terms of how the industry reconciles big data, how marketing and relationships are built and reinforced with mobile devices, and yes, it's about payments as well. Okay, so from a MasterCard perspective, obviously we're a payments business, and MasterCard over the last several months, several quarters, have been focusing quite a bit on digital wallets in our own efforts called MasterPass. So why do we care about MasterPass? For us, very simply, MasterCard wants to go after cash and check. If you look at the numbers from an overall perspective, and you've seen some level of these numbers in your own business, there's still about 85% of commerce or cash and check, spending by consumers that is done by cash and check. Only about 15, maybe 20% of that is electronified using the current banking systems, if you will, MasterCard, Visa, so on and so forth. And so for us, this is not about, from a MasterCard perspective, this is not about fighting it out with Visa or Amex or anything like that. Yeah, we're going to do that, but this is about going after the 85%. How do we grow the pie? And we see smart devices, digital commerce as a way of kind of getting there. So a lot of our work with MasterPass is about MasterCard 3.0. This is the digitization, if you will, of MasterCard. This is kind of what I meant before when I said digitization is dead serious for us here at MasterCard, because for us to grow our business, we got to get at the 85% that is currently not electronified by the payment systems today. And so for us, simply put, it's not about wallets. Consumers don't buy payments, right? They buy value-added services. They buy experiences. So we know whatever we do Our wallet has to be a foundational piece, but it's not the complete answer. We have to work with our merchants, we have to work with technology providers and players like yourselves to build these consumer experiences that are going to be rendered through these mobile devices on a one-to-one personalized way with those consumers working with our merchants. And so for us, it's wallets, yeah, that's kind of the first inning, but to get the second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth, it's about consumer experiences. Okay? A little bit more about MasterPass. MasterPass for us is really one or two of the fundamental pillars of this digitization of MasterCard. First, MasterPass, from an acceptance perspective, is something that we want to establish in the digital realm, if you will, so that just as when you go to a physical location and you see the MasterCard interlocking circles, you know you can whip out your card and it's going to work. What's that same unifying comfort mark that you want to have in the digital world if you're buying something on your phone or on a digital TV or what have you? What's the thing that's going to make you feel comfortable that you're actually buying something from a legitimate mobile application? And we're hoping that MasterPass is a way of helping with that comfort, if you will. The second part of this is obviously wallets. MasterCard is not in the wallet business. We don't have our own wallet that we're trying to sell and get consumers to sign up. What we're trying to do is to enable our financial institutions to render their wallets, to bring their consumers to leverage this MasterPass acceptance mark as we build acceptance with online, offline, and in-store applications. We feel that this is a better model because it leverages the brands of our banks, it leverages the existing base of our banks, it supports those investments that they've made there, and it's the quickest way that we could take the 1.9 billion cardholders that we have around the world and get them digitized into this marketplace. Okay, let me keep on going. For us, it's not simply about NFC or smart cards or anything else like that. It's about everything in between. So there's a place for QR codes, there's a place for Bluetooth, and so on and so forth to create and to be customized into these consumer experiences. So rather than me talking, let me show you a quick cartoon here, and that'll give you an idea of kind of where we're trying to get to. And then I think I'll wrap up.
Today's consumers are leading a more connected digital lifestyle. And for all the ways we now can pay.
Well, I'm going to stop that video because that was pretty terrible. But the net of it is this is about a consumer-driven experience based on smart devices that brings together what they would normally do in an online e-commerce mobile kind of way, in a face-to-face kind of a way, into a common experience driven and kind of leveraged by mobile devices to help them do what they got to do. This is, for us, is about a consumer-driven experience where the consumer has all the leverage in the world. For us, we feel like this is early days, so you're going to still see a lot of experimentation in the marketplace. There's no silver bullet out there. I think what you're going to see as we kind of move on into, as we get more experience with this, you'll see more and more merchants come up with mobile applications, mobile experiences that they're trying to create to get closer to their customers. I think from a MasterCard perspective, we're well on our way, right? We today have 25,000 accepted locations for MasterPass. We're getting our bags up and going. We're launching our wallets, platforms, if you will. Well, I think we're going to be in around 11 countries by the end of 2013. But even with all this progress, we're only really in the first inning. So I think we got this is put on your seatbelt, put on your helmet, because there's going to be a lot of work to be done to create these customized experiences. And so with that, I'll get to
open up for questions. Got one over here. I've got one quick one while I'm walking over here. Ken, can you talk a bit about the confusion in the marketplace? Because you've got retailers facing all kinds of options, and there are more every day. There are consumers facing all kinds of payment options. What causes that to sort itself out over time? Is it going to be acquisition? Because companies are launching, they're not closing.
So do you mean about payments, or you mean about
about everything, about platforms, about POS systems, about wallets?
The bottom line with this Star Wars that is going on in the marketplace is who has the closest relationship with the consumer. Is it the manufacturers of the goods that are sold by the retailers? Is it the retailers? Is it the bank? And I think what's happening is we're seeing the maturation of this holy war between who owns the customer. Who owns the customer owns the data. Who owns the data has the power to communicate with the consumers. So I think you'll see different models emerge. Some merchants will win. Some third parties, like a Google, might have sweet spots that they're capturing. Some manufacturers, like Nabisco and so on and so forth, might have sweet spots there too. But they'll all have a little chunk, and they'll all be relevant to the consumers that they attract. And I think that's okay, because there's no silver bullet out there. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Grace from
Hi, Grace.
McCann. Ken, I have a question about, you talked about how using big data to create one-on-one customized experiences with your consumers. And I foresee some challenges. How are you going to is that scalable? And what other challenges do you foresee in the future?
Well, there's huge challenges for sure. A couple of things. There's the underlying regulatory questions about data and how do you use it in terms of consumer privacy and consumer rights. And so I think we've seen some of those headlines from the Googles and the Apples and so on and so forth. And that's not going to stop, because I think, at least in the U.S. perspective, there's a huge focus on government to protect consumers and how information is used. If you talk to the regulators, they'll say, hey, they love the opportunity to leverage mobile devices and things like that to drive commerce, but they're super concerned about making sure that consumers know that the data is used for those purposes. The next level is the commerce level, I think, which is, consumers, players in the ecosystem has had data for a long, long time. So the banks have data, acquirers have data, the merchants have data. They're only really now getting their arms around how to use that data, because of smart devices today, they're able to channel that data and create new and special ways to kind of get that real-time information to consumers. And they're working with a lot of vendors and things of that nature to try to do that. And we talked a little bit about how some of the science is imprecise, if you will, today. But the way that I think about it is a layering, if you will. I could use geolocation. I could use historical behavior. I can use X, Y, and Z to come up with a more a targeted approach to consumers. And that's kind of what's kind of going on right now. Some players do it better. But if you can do it better from a technology perspective, you don't necessarily own the data, and so that's the struggle that we have commercially. Yes, sir.
Hi, Chris from Ogilvy and Mather. You
Hi.
talked about the opportunity, the 85% that's flying through cash and check. Can you talk a little bit about the threat? Because it strikes me this would be a great opportunity to say, I don't want to pay your 2.5%. I'm going to shift it to debit. I'm going to create my own in-house system. I'll just take, payment cards, digitize them. How big of a threat is this to the credit card providers?
Well, I mean, so you say threat, I say opportunities, and this is assuming that the existing payment models stay the same, or the existing payment models is all we have. I think from a payment business perspective, we need to understand what these commerce experiences are. Are we talking about flat screen TVs, or are we talking about subscription content? It really means different things, and kind of the rules of the road, if you will, the pricing models and things of that nature needs to be commensurate with kind of the channels that we're talking about. So, to kind of tap dance around your question about pricing and how we make money, I think that as you think about different payment flows and different commerce experiences, it stands to reason that you need to innovate with what those payment models also look like as well. So I think that's the opportunity to kind of get to the 85%.
Thank you. That's all we have time for questions.
Oh, that lady has her hand up right there.
Hi. Just really quickly, you mentioned that payments are moving to really consumer-driven shopping experiences, or
Yep.
part of the shopping experience. Can you talk a little bit, just like a couple, maybe like top 3 trends that you see in terms of what the consumer wants from the payment experience?
Yeah, I think some of the I'll go back a little bit more in kind of the social media research that I talked about that we did earlier this year. We looked at 85,000 conversations globally. So consumers, one big trend from my interpretation of it, there is a very strong relationship between shopping and now social media. And so consumers want to comparison shop, but in such a way that is social. So this is not only about, hey, is this flat screen TV better than this flat screen TV? It's about whether or not my best friend, Grace, over there, who also likes this TV and have her point of view about this too. So there seems to be a trend there that talks to the influencing of social into decision making in terms of shopping. The second trend is this is not about just buying something when you want to. It's not about the transaction or the experience when you're just buying something. It's about before, during, and after as well, and this circle that continues on and on and on, spiraling in. It becomes more not of a conscious effort of I'm going to buy this thing, I'm going to make a plan to buy it. It creates the opportunity for spontaneous buying. And so I think we have to be aware of that because, as we talked about before in the panel before me, this is not about simply going to the store and buying something. This is about me laying in my couch, sleepless at night and kind of messing around with my iPad and figuring out that I want this thing. I gotta have it right now. So I think those are some of the big trends here. And what this translates into is how do we recognize that that is happening? How do we take that information and put the right information at the right moment to the right person in a customized way for me that gets me to move the needle in some way?
Great. Please join me in thanking Ken.
Thanks, Chuck. Thank you.